I'm 23 and I haven't spoken to my family in 4 years. Not because I wanted distance or needed space or any of that peaceful separation nonsense. They cut me off completely when I was 18 and turned me into their official family embarrassment story. The version they tell people is that I'm a drug addict who stole from them and ran off to live in some sketchy rooming house with a sugar daddy landlord. None of that is true, but when has truth ever mattered to people who need a scapegoat? What actually happened 4 years ago was that I refused to back up my dad Alfred's lie about why he got fired from his job. He told everyone at a family reunion that he quit to pursue better opportunities, but I knew he got fired for screaming at his boss during a staff meeting. I made the mistake of mentioning the real story to my Aunt Sandra when she asked how Dad was handling the job change, and apparently that got back to him within an hour. He called me into the living room and told me I needed to get my story straight and stop making him look bad. I said I wasn't going to lie for him. He said if I couldn't be loyal to family, then I could get out. Mom Pauline backed him up completely. She said I was always causing problems and making everything about myself, and that I needed to learn respect. My sister Samantha, who was 14 at the time, just sat there on her phone not saying anything. My brother Kirk, who was 16, started filming me on his phone and laughing. Dad told me I had until the end of the week to find somewhere else to live. I moved in with my friend Hamish's family for a few months while I got a job at a warehouse and saved up. They helped me get into a cheap apartment, and I've been working my way up since then. During those first few months, I tried calling my parents probably 20 times. I texted Samantha asking if we could talk. I sent Kirk messages on Instagram asking what was going on. They all ignored me completely. Then I started hearing through mutual friends what my family was saying about me. According to them, I had a drug problem. I stole money from Dad's wallet. I was living in a rooming house with some older man who was letting me stay there for free in exchange for God knows what. Mom told people I was wearing thrift store clothes that probably came from dead people because I couldn't afford anything decent. Dad said I was a disappointment who threw away every opportunity they gave me. They had this whole narrative worked out and they stuck to it. Family members I'd known my whole life stopped responding to my messages. People I went to high school with would see me at the grocery store and literally turn around and walk the other way. So I stopped trying to contact them. I stopped trying to explain. Instead, I started planning. I kept working at the warehouse and got promoted to shift supervisor. I moved to a better apartment. I saved money. I bought decent clothes. I got my life together specifically so that when the moment came, I'd be ready to show them exactly who they turned me into. The thing about families like mine is they care a lot about appearances. Dad's whole personality is about being respected. Mom's entire social life revolves around church ladies and neighborhood associations where everyone knows everyone's business. Samantha's always been the golden child who does everything right. Kirk's trying to be some kind of social media influencer with his YouTube channel. They built their reputations on being a good, solid family, and I was the problem they erased. I knew eventually there'd be an event I could use. I knew they'd have some big family gathering where appearances mattered and everyone would be watching. When I saw on Facebook that Samantha was graduating from college, I knew that was it. Mom had been posting about the graduation BBQ for weeks. Big backyard party with all the relatives and Samantha's friends. Dad rented a fancy grill. They had catering. The whole neighborhood was basically invited. I didn't RSVP obviously since I wasn't invited, but I had the address memorized from the 4 years I lived there. I showed up at 3 p.m. on Saturday when the party was in full swing. There were probably 60 people in the backyard. I walked in through the side gate carrying a gift bag. The first person who saw me was Kirk. He was standing by the grill with his phone out, probably filming content for his channel. He looked at me for a solid 5 seconds before he yelled, "Hey everyone, look who decided to show up." The entire backyard went quiet. I saw Dad turn around from where he was talking to Uncle Hamish. His face went red immediately. Dad started walking toward me fast and I could see people moving out of his way. He got right up in my face and started yelling about what the hell I thought I was doing, showing up where I wasn't wanted. The family disappointment crawled out of his roach motel, he announced to everyone. Several people laughed. I just stood there holding my gift bag. Mom came rushing over and grabbed my jacket. She made this disgusted face and said something about how I was still wearing dead people's clothes and that even homeless shelters have standards. More people laughed. Samantha was standing with a group of her college friends, and I heard her say loudly that her friends had bet on whether I'd show up high again. Kirk was definitely filming now, and he announced to his phone that YouTube needs more cringe content and told me to say hi to my sugar daddy landlord. Dad grabbed the gift bag out of my hands and ripped it open. He dumped it out and started laughing at what trash was I bringing, and did I pay for it with food stamps. The bag had tissue paper in it. Under the tissue paper was a flash drive in a small plastic case. I picked up the flash drive and held it out to Dad. I told him it was family reunion footage and that he should enjoy watching it tonight. Then I turned around and walked back through the side gate. I heard Dad yelling something about me being pathetic, but I was already getting in my car. I drove home and waited. I knew what was on that drive. I'd spent 4 years putting it together. Every time I ran into a family member at the store or the mall, I recorded it on my phone. Every conversation where they pretended not to know me or walked away. Every time I overheard them talking about me to other people, I recorded it. I had footage from Aunt Sandra's birthday party 2 years ago where I showed up, and Dad told everyone I was probably there to steal wallets. I had audio of Mom at church telling people I was mentally unstable. I had Kirk's deleted YouTube videos where he made fun of his loser brother who couldn't get his life together. I had screenshots of Samantha's Instagram where she posted about being an only child. The flash drive had all of it. 3.5 hours of footage and screenshots organized into folders by year. I'd edited it together with dates and locations. Anyone who watched it would see exactly what kind of family creates a fake story about their own son and spends 4 years maintaining the lie. The first call came at 11:47 p.m. It was Dad. I didn't answer. Then Mom called. Then Samantha. Then Kirk. Then Dad again. By midnight, I had 73 missed calls. I finally answered when Dad called for the 10th time. He was screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "You destroyed everything," he kept yelling over and over. I could hear Mom crying in the background saying, "Delete it now, delete it now." I asked Dad if he enjoyed the reunion footage. He started threatening me, saying, "I better fix this or else." I asked him, "Or else what?" And he just hung up. My phone kept going off all night. Text messages from relatives I hadn't heard from in years. Voicemails from family friends. Samantha sent me a long message about how I ruined her graduation party, and everyone was asking questions. Kirk sent me a voice message calling me every name he could think of. Aunt Sandra called and left a voicemail, asking if we could talk because she just saw something really disturbing. Uncle Hamish sent a text saying he had no idea things were like that. I haven't responded to anyone yet. I'm sitting here watching my phone blow up, and honestly, I don't even feel satisfied exactly. I just feel like I finally did something after 4 years of being erased. They wanted me to disappear and stay disappeared. They wanted their clean family story. But I'm not staying in whatever box they tried to put me in. Now, I don't know what happens next. Part of me wants to block all of them and move on, but another part of me knows this is just starting. They're going to try to do damage control. They're going to come up with some new story. And I have decisions to make about how far I'm willing to take this. Anyone else ever burn down their family's lies and then wonder what you're supposed to do with the ashes? Update 1. Okay, so the comments on my last post were wild. Shout out to everyone who said my family would try to make themselves the victims because you called it perfectly. That's exactly what's happening, and honestly, watching them scramble is almost worth the 4 years of being erased from existence. Sunday morning, I woke up to 140 new messages. My phone was basically useless. I scrolled through and saw the same pattern over and over. Family members demanding I call them immediately. Distant cousins asking what the hell was on that flash drive. Family friends saying they were confused and needed to hear my side. But the most interesting messages were from people I didn't expect. Aunt Sandra sent me a long text saying she watched the entire drive and wanted to meet up to talk. She said she had no idea things were that bad, and she felt terrible about believing the stories. Uncle Hamish sent something similar. A few of my parents' neighbors who'd been at the party were asking questions. Even some of Samantha's college friends were messaging me on Instagram asking if what they heard was true. But here's where it gets good. Dad wasn't just sitting around crying about his ruined reputation. He was on the phone with every single family member he could reach doing damage control. I know this because my cousin texted me around 9 a.m. saying Dad had just called him claiming the flash drive was full of edited footage, and that I'd manipulated everything to make them look bad. Dad was telling people I was mentally unstable and seeking revenge for being kicked out when I refused to follow house rules. Mom was doing the same thing with her church group. She was telling people I showed up high to the party and created a scene, and that the flash drive contained lies I'd fabricated because I was angry about being cut off financially. She was crying to her friends about how hard it was to have a son who turned out like me and how they tried everything to help me, but I refused. Kirk posted on his YouTube community tab around 10 a.m. He said his brother, who he hasn't seen in years, crashed a family event and caused drama, and that some people were spreading false information about his family. He said the truth would come out soon and that people should wait for his video explaining everything. His comments were full of his followers asking what happened, and some people who'd apparently heard about the flash drive asking if the rumors were true. Samantha was the smartest about it. She didn't post anything publicly, but I started getting messages from her friends asking me to delete whatever I'd shown people because it was ruining her graduation weekend. One of her friends, who I'd actually met a few times before the family split, told me Samantha was telling everyone I was jealous of her success and trying to sabotage her celebration. I didn't respond to anyone until Monday morning. I had to work a full shift at the warehouse, and I wanted to think about my next move. See, here's the thing that I don't think my family understood. I didn't just collect footage for 4 years and then stop. I've been preparing for this moment. I knew they'd try to discredit everything. I knew they'd claim I edited the videos or took things out of context, so I kept receipts. Monday afternoon, I was in the break room at work when my phone rang. It was Aunt Sandra. I answered because she'd always been decent to me before the family split, and I was curious what she wanted. She asked if we could meet up to talk in person. I asked her what she wanted to talk about. She said she watched the flash drive and had some questions and wanted to hear my full story. We met at this diner near my apartment complex on Tuesday evening. Sandra was already there when I arrived, and she had this concerned look on her face that I recognized from when I was younger. She asked me how I'd been and if I was doing okay. I told her I was fine and asked what she wanted to know. She started by saying she felt horrible about the way she'd treated me after the family split. She said Dad had told her I was on drugs and living in dangerous situations, and she thought cutting contact was the right thing to do. She said after watching the flash drive, she realized she'd been lied to. Then she asked me if everything on the drive was real or if I'd edited anything. I pulled out my phone and showed her the original files. I had everything backed up with timestamps and metadata. I showed her the raw footage from Aunt Sandra's own birthday party where Dad told people I was probably there to steal. I showed her the unedited audio files from church where Mom talked about me. I showed her Kirk's YouTube videos that he'd deleted, but I downloaded before he removed them. I showed her screenshots of Samantha's Instagram with dates visible. Sandra got quiet for a long time. Then she said she couldn't believe Alfred would do this. She kept saying she'd known him for 40 years and never thought he was capable of lying like this. I asked her what she thought happened 4 years ago. She said Dad told her I'd stolen money and gotten into drugs and refused help. I told her what actually happened with Dad getting fired and me refusing to lie about it. She asked me why Dad would make up such an elaborate story just because I wouldn't lie for him. I explained that Dad's entire identity is built on being respected and successful. When he got fired, it destroyed that image. He needed someone to blame for why his life wasn't perfect anymore. I was convenient. She asked if I had proof he got fired instead of quitting. I showed her the termination letter I'd found in the trash 4 years ago. I'd kept it. Sandra put her head in her hands and said this was so much worse than she thought. She said half the family believed Dad's version and the other half was starting to ask questions. She said Dad was calling everyone and insisting the flash drive was fake. She said Mom was having a breakdown because people at church were asking her about it. She said Samantha was furious because some of her friends saw the footage and were questioning the family dynamics. I asked Sandra what she expected me to do about it. She said she wasn't sure, but that this was tearing the family apart. People were taking sides. Some relatives were defending Dad and saying I was attacking the family. Others were saying they always thought something was off about the story. Sandra said her husband was fighting with his brother because the brother thought Dad was being wrongly accused. Then Sandra asked me what I wanted out of all this. Did I want an apology? Did I want to reconcile? Did I want revenge? I told her I wanted them to stop lying about me. I wanted everyone who'd ignored me for 4 years to know the truth. I wanted Mom to stop telling people I'm on drugs. I wanted Dad to stop playing the victim. I wanted Kirk to take down any videos where he mocked me. I wanted Samantha to admit she has a brother instead of pretending to be an only child. Sandra said that was going to be really hard to accomplish because Dad was already committed to his version of events. Mom was backing him up completely. Kirk was planning some kind of response video. Samantha wasn't talking to anyone outside her immediate friend group. Sandra said if I really wanted to make them acknowledge the truth, I'd need to do more than just show people a flash drive. I told Sandra I had more than a flash drive. She looked at me and asked what I meant. I told her I'd spent 4 years building a complete record of everything. I had saved every text message my parents sent me before they blocked my number. I had emails from before the split. I had photos of us as a family that proved I existed, despite Samantha's only child act. I had documentation of every attempt I made to contact them, and every time they ignored me or spread lies. Sandra asked me what I was planning to do with all of that. I told her I hadn't decided yet, but that I wasn't going to let them rewrite history. Dad spent 4 years making me the villain in his story. Now he could deal with being the villain in mine. Wednesday morning, Kirk posted his response video. It was 23 minutes long and titled, Addressing Family Drama. He talked about how family is complicated and how sometimes people grow apart. He said I'd made choices that led to me being cut off, and that he respected his parents' decision to maintain boundaries. He said the flash drive contained cherry-picked moments without context. He said families argue and say things in the heat of the moment, but that doesn't mean they're bad people. He never once addressed the specific footage. He didn't talk about him filming me and mocking me. He didn't mention the deleted videos where he called me a loser. He just kept saying everything was being taken out of context and that people should respect his family's privacy. His comments were a mix of support from his regular followers and questions from people who'd apparently seen or heard about the actual footage. I screen recorded his entire video and added it to my collection. Thursday, Dad showed up at my apartment building. I have no idea how he got my address, but he was there when I came home from work. He was standing by the main entrance, and when he saw me, he started walking toward me fast. He said we needed to talk and that this had gone far enough. I asked him what he wanted. He said I needed to tell everyone the flash drive was fake and that I made everything up. I laughed. I actually laughed right in his face. He got angrier and said I had no idea what I'd done. People at his new job were asking him questions because someone who knew someone at the party had mentioned it. Mom's friends at church were gossiping. Samantha's college friends were spreading rumors. Kirk's YouTube channel was getting comments asking about his family drama. All of this was my fault, according to Dad. I asked him whose fault it was that he got fired 4 years ago. He said that was irrelevant. I asked him whose fault it was that he kicked me out for not lying. He said I was disrespectful and disloyal. I asked him whose fault it was that Mom told everyone I was on drugs. He said they had to tell people something. I asked him whose fault it was that he spent 4 years calling me a disappointment. He said I disappointed them. That's when I realized Dad genuinely believed his own story. He'd told the lie so many times that in his mind it became truth. In his version, I really was the problem. I really did deserve to be cut off. The flash drive wasn't evidence of their lies, it was evidence of my betrayal for recording them. I told Dad I wasn't telling anyone anything was fake because nothing was fake. He said if I didn't fix this, he'd make my life hell. I asked him how exactly he planned to do that, considering he'd already done his worst 4 years ago. He didn't have an answer for that. He just stood there looking at me, and I could see him trying to figure out his next move. Finally, he said this wasn't over and that I'd regret forcing his hand. Then he left. I went upstairs to my apartment and added a note to my files about Dad threatening me outside my building. Because here's what my family still doesn't understand. I'm not done. The flash drive was just step 1. They think if they deny everything and wait it out, people will forget, and things will go back to normal. But I spent 4 years being erased from my own family story. I'm not letting them erase what they did. I have copies of everything. Multiple backups, cloud storage, external drives. If they somehow destroyed every copy I gave out, I could make 100 more. And I'm starting to think showing them the evidence wasn't enough. They're just going to keep lying until I make them face real consequences. So my question for you guys is this. How far should I take this? Because I have ideas and some of them are pretty nuclear. Update 2. The comments telling me to go nuclear were definitely heard. Some of you said I should just walk away and let them destroy themselves, but honestly, where's the fun in that? I spent 4 years building this case, and I'm not stopping until they admit what they did. Friday morning started normal. I was doing inventory at the warehouse when my supervisor came back and said someone was in the front office asking for me. I figured it was a delivery or something. Instead, I walked up front and Mom was standing there with 2 of her church friends. She looked like she'd been crying for days. Her friends looked uncomfortable. Mom started talking before I even got close. She said we needed to have a family meeting to resolve this situation. She said Dad was willing to sit down and talk if I agreed to stop spreading lies about them. I asked her what lies exactly. She said the footage on the flash drive was misleading and taken out of context. I asked her which parts were misleading. She couldn't answer that. She just kept saying we needed to talk as a family. Her church friends were standing there nodding along. One of them said something about how families need to forgive and move forward. I asked Mom why she brought strangers to my workplace. She said they weren't strangers, they were her prayer partners, and they wanted to help mediate. I told her I didn't need meditation, I needed her to stop telling people I'm a drug addict. She said she never called me that. I pulled out my phone and played the audio clip from 2 years ago, where she told someone at church I was on drugs and living in dangerous situations. Mom went pale. Her friends looked shocked. Mom said I had no right to record her without permission. I said I had every right to record people talking about me in public spaces. She said this was exactly the problem and that I was too angry to think clearly. She said I was hurting the whole family over something that happened 4 years ago. I told her it didn't just happen 4 years ago. It's been happening continuously for 4 years every single time she opened her mouth to lie about me. One of her church friends tried to intervene. She said everyone makes mistakes and that holding grudges isn't healthy. I asked her if she'd feel the same way if someone spent 4 years telling everyone she knew that she was a drug addict. She didn't have an answer. Mom said she was trying to protect the family's reputation. I asked her what about my reputation. She said I made my choices. I asked her what choices those were exactly. She said I chose to disrespect my father and refuse to follow house rules. I told Mom the only house rule I broke was refusing to lie for Dad. She said that's not what happened. I said yes it is. And I have the termination letter from Dad's job to prove he was fired, not quit. Mom said that letter was private property. I said I found it in the trash, so technically it was discarded property. She said I was being ridiculous and that normal families don't do this to each other. I told her normal families don't kick their kids out for telling the truth. My supervisor came back and asked if everything was okay. Mom said we were just having a family discussion. My supervisor looked at me, and I could tell he was uncomfortable with my mom and her friends being there. I told Mom we were done talking and that she needed to leave. She said we weren't done until I agreed to delete everything and apologize to the family. I said I wasn't apologizing for anything. She said then I was choosing to destroy the family. I said she already did that 4 years ago. Mom left, but not before telling me I'd regret this. Her church friends gave me these disappointed looks like I was the problem. After they left, my supervisor asked if I was all right. I said, yeah, just family drama. He said if they showed up again, he'd call security. I appreciated that, but I also knew Mom wouldn't give up that easily. Saturday, things got worse. I started getting messages from relatives I barely knew. Dad's cousin wanted to know why I was trying to ruin Dad's life. Mom's sister, who I haven't seen since I was 12, said I should be ashamed of myself. Uncle Hamish's wife sent me a long message about how Dad and Mom were good people who made mistakes and didn't deserve to be publicly humiliated. But here's where it gets interesting. I also got messages from other relatives taking my side. Dad's brother, who I haven't talked to in years, said he always thought Dad's story didn't add up. Mom's cousin said she remembered the family reunion 4 years ago and thought it was weird how suddenly I became the family villain. Aunt Sandra's daughter, who's around my age, sent me a message saying she saw some of the footage and wanted to know more about what really happened. The family was splitting into camps. Some people believed Dad's version that I was mentally unstable and attacking them. Other people were questioning why my parents would make up such an elaborate story if it wasn't at least partially true, and a few people were flat out saying they believed me and wanted nothing to do with Dad and Mom anymore. Sunday was supposed to be a big family barbecue at Uncle Hamish's house. Apparently it turned into a disaster. I wasn't there obviously, but I got multiple messages about it. Dad showed up and half the family wouldn't talk to him. Some relatives were demanding he explain the footage. Others were defending him and saying everyone was overreacting. Mom had a breakdown and left early. Kirk tried to film content and someone told him to put his phone away. Samantha apparently didn't even show up. Aunt Sandra called me Sunday night. She said the barbecue was a nightmare and that the family was completely divided. Some people weren't speaking to each other. Her husband and his brother got into a huge argument about whether I was lying. Dad's sister left crying because people were questioning her about whether she knew the truth. Sandra said this was getting out of control and asked what I wanted to happen. I told her I wanted the truth to be acknowledged. I wanted Dad to admit he kicked me out for not lying for him. I wanted Mom to admit she made up stories about me being on drugs. I wanted Kirk to admit he mocked me for YouTube content. I wanted Samantha to stop pretending I don't exist. Sandra asked if I'd be willing to sit down with them if they agreed to tell the truth. I said sure, but we both knew that wasn't going to happen. Monday, Kirk posted another video. This one was different. He was clearly angry. He said people were harassing his family based on edited footage from a disgruntled relative. He said his parents were good people who'd been nothing but supportive. He said I was spreading lies because I was bitter about consequences of my own actions. He said anyone who believed the footage without hearing both sides was part of the problem. His comments were a war zone. Some people were supporting him. Others were calling him out for not addressing specific evidence. Someone asked why he deleted his old videos about his loser brother. He didn't respond to that comment. Someone else asked why his sister pretends to be an only child. He didn't respond to that either. His subscriber count was dropping. Not a lot, but enough that he was definitely noticing. I made a decision. Kirk wanted to use YouTube as his platform? Fine. I created my own channel. I uploaded a video titled The Real Story. I showed the clips of Kirk filming me at the party and mocking me. I showed his deleted videos where he called me a disappointment and made jokes about my living situation. I showed screenshots of him telling his followers his family was perfect. Then I showed footage of him laughing at me at family events over 4 years. I didn't say anything in the video. I just let the footage speak for itself. I ended it with Kirk's recent video claiming his family was nothing but supportive and asked viewers to decide who was telling the truth. The video got 200 views in the first hour. By Tuesday morning, it had 1,500. Kirk's followers were finding it. People were sharing it. The comments were mostly supportive of me. Some people were calling Kirk a fake. Others were saying this explained why his content felt inauthentic lately. Kirk called me Tuesday afternoon. He was furious. He said I had no right to post that video. He said it was defamation and he'd sue me. I asked him how it was defamation if everything in the video was real footage. He said I was ruining his channel. I said he ruined my reputation for 4 years. He said that was different. I asked how. He couldn't answer. Kirk said if I didn't take the video down, he'd make sure I regretted it. I asked him what he was going to do. He said he had connections and resources I didn't understand. I laughed. I told him his connections were YouTube followers who were currently questioning whether they should unsubscribe. His resources were a camera and editing software. I had 4 years of documentation and nothing to lose. He hung up on me. 20 minutes later, I got a copyright strike on my video from Kirk, claiming I used his content without permission. I appealed it immediately. YouTube's system takes a few days to review. In the meantime, the video stayed up and kept getting views. Wednesday, Samantha finally contacted me directly. She sent me a long message on Instagram. She said I was destroying her life. Some of her college friends had seen the footage and were asking her about it. A few of her professors were making comments about family dynamics. She was getting pitying looks at her part-time job. People were treating her differently because they knew her family situation was messed up. She said this wasn't fair because she didn't do anything to me. She was just a kid when I got kicked out. She shouldn't be punished for mom and dad's decisions. I responded asking her about her only child posts on Instagram. She said that was just social media and didn't mean anything. I asked her about laughing at me at the graduation party. She said she was trying to fit in with her friends. I asked her about the 4 years she ignored every message I sent. She said mom and dad told her not to respond. I told Samantha she had plenty of chances to be a decent human being and she chose not to. She said I was being cruel. I said she spent 4 years pretending I didn't exist, and now she was upset that I was proving I did exist. She said if I cared about her at all, I'd stop. I said if she cared about me at all, she would have responded to one message in 4 years. Samantha blocked me after that, but the damage was done. Her friends knew. Her professors knew. Her coworkers knew. She couldn't maintain the perfect family image anymore. Thursday, I got a message from Dad's boss. Someone had sent him the flash drive. He wanted to talk to Dad about some concerns regarding honesty and workplace integrity. Dad called me Thursday night absolutely losing it. He said I sent his boss the footage. I said I didn't. He said I was destroying his life. I said his life was fine, he just couldn't lie anymore. He said if he lost this job, it would be my fault. I said if he lost his job, it would be because he's the same person who got fired from his last job for screaming at his boss. Dad said I was going to pay for this. I asked him how. He said he'd find a way. I told him I'd been waiting 4 years for him to find a way, and so far all he'd done was prove everything I said about him was true. Friday, Mom called. She was crying. She said people at church were talking about her. Some of her friends were distancing themselves. The pastor wanted to meet with her and Dad about the situation. She said I was tearing apart everything they built. I said they built their life on lies about me. She said I was supposed to be their son. I said I was their son right up until the moment it became inconvenient for them. She asked what it would take for me to stop. I said the truth. She said they'd already told the truth. I said no. They told a story that made them look good. She said there was no difference. I said that's exactly the problem. The family group chat that I'm not part of but that Sandra keeps me updated on is apparently a disaster. Half the family wants Dad and Mom to apologize to me. The other half thinks I'm a vindictive person who's attacking my family. Holidays are going to be a nightmare because people are already refusing to attend events if certain other people are there. And honestly, I'm not done yet. I have more footage. I have more evidence. I have plans for if they keep pushing. They wanted to erase me from the family story. Now they're finding out I documented the whole thing, and I'm not staying quiet anymore. So yeah, the family war is in full swing and I'm winning. Final update. You guys wanted nuclear. You got nuclear. This is going to be long because the past week has been absolutely insane and I need to get it all out. Saturday morning, I was at the grocery store when I ran into Dad's sister. She'd been one of the relatives defending him at the barbecue. She saw me in the produce section and walked right up. She said we needed to talk about what I was doing to the family. I said I wasn't doing anything to the family, I was just showing people what the family did to me. She said that wasn't how everyone saw it. She told me Dad was on thin ice at his job. His boss was questioning whether someone who'd lie to his entire family about basic facts could be trusted with workplace responsibilities. Mom was basically ostracized at church because people were calling her a hypocrite for preaching about honesty while lying about her own son. Kirk's YouTube channel had lost over 3,000 subscribers in a week. Samantha was having panic attacks about people judging her family's situation. I asked her what she expected me to do about any of that. She said I could take down the videos and tell people I exaggerated. I asked her why I would lie to make them look better after they spent 4 years lying to make me look worse. She said, because family is supposed to forgive. I told her family is also supposed to not kick you out and spend 4 years destroying your reputation, but here we are. She said I was being stubborn and cruel. I said I was being honest, which is apparently a radical concept in this family. She said if I kept this up, there would be permanent damage. I said the permanent damage happened 4 years ago when they erased me from existence. She walked away saying I'd regret this. Sunday, the family had an emergency meeting at my parents' house. I wasn't invited, obviously, but Aunt Sandra called me afterward and told me everything. Apparently, about 15 relatives showed up. Dad and Mom wanted to present a united front and get everyone on the same page about how to handle me. Kirk was there with a whole presentation about protecting the family's image. Samantha was there crying about how her life was falling apart. Dad started by saying I was attacking them, and they needed family support to weather this crisis. He said I'd always been a difficult kid who couldn't handle discipline. He said when he tried to teach me responsibility, I rebelled and made them the bad guys. He said everything on the flash drive was either edited or taken out of context. Mom backed him up saying they did everything they could for me, but I refused help. That's when Aunt Sandra spoke up. She said she'd seen the raw footage and it wasn't edited. She said she'd talked to me extensively and heard my side. She said maybe everyone should consider that Dad and Mom had been lying this whole time. Dad got angry and said Sandra was betraying the family by believing a troubled kid over her own brother. Sandra said she wasn't betraying anyone. She was just questioning a story that never made sense. Other relatives started chiming in. Some agreed with Dad that I was the problem. Others agreed with Sandra that something wasn't adding up. The meeting devolved into arguments. People were picking sides. Dad's brother said he'd always thought the drug addict story was suspicious. Mom's cousin said she remembered me being a good kid and the sudden personality change never made sense. Kirk tried to take control by showing his PowerPoint about reputation management. He had a whole slide about controlling the narrative and not letting one disgruntled person define the family. Someone asked why he deleted videos about his brother. Kirk said those videos were private family matters. Someone else said if they were private, why did he post them publicly? Kirk didn't have a good answer. The meeting ended with nothing resolved. Half the family left supporting Dad and Mom. The other half left with serious doubts. Aunt Sandra said it was the worst family gathering she'd ever witnessed and that relationships were permanently damaged. Monday, I got a text from an unknown number. It was Samantha using a friend's phone since she'd blocked me. She said she needed to talk to me urgently. I told her to unblock me if she wanted to talk. She unblocked me and called immediately. Samantha was crying. She said her college advisor had asked to meet with her about concerns regarding her family situation affecting her studies. Apparently, several professors had noticed she seemed distressed and people were gossiping. She said this was affecting her academic reputation and she couldn't focus on her senior year. She said I needed to stop because I was ruining her future. I asked her if she remembered ruining my present 4 years ago when she laughed at me in front of her friends. She said that was different, she was just a kid. I said she was 14, not 4, and she knew exactly what she was doing. She said she was sorry. I asked her what she was sorry for specifically. She couldn't articulate it. She just kept saying she was sorry and I needed to stop. I told Samantha that sorry doesn't fix 4 years of being erased. Sorry doesn't undo her only child Instagram posts. Sorry doesn't make up for ignoring every message I sent. She said she'd do anything if I just take down the videos and stop talking to relatives. I asked her what anything meant. She said she'd tell people we were siblings again. I laughed. I told her that wasn't even the bare minimum, that was just basic honesty. She got angry then. She said I was vindictive and cruel and enjoyed hurting people. She said I was no better than I accused Mom and Dad of being. I told her the difference is I was hurting people who actually hurt me first while they hurt me for refusing to lie for them. She said that was semantics. I said that was the entire point. Samantha hung up. An hour later, she posted on Instagram. It was a long caption about toxic family members and how sometimes you have to cut people out for your own mental health. She didn't name me, but it was obviously about me. Her comments were full of supportive friends saying she deserved better. I screenshot the whole thing and added it to my collection. Tuesday, Kirk's YouTube channel got age restricted. Apparently enough people had reported his deleted videos that I'd reposted for YouTube to review his entire channel. They found violations of community guidelines related to bullying and harassment. His channel wasn't taken down, but the age restriction killed his algorithm. His views dropped by 70% overnight. Kirk sent me a voice message that was 3 minutes of him screaming. He said I destroyed 4 years of work. He said YouTube was his career path and I'd ruined it. He said he'd spent countless hours building his channel and I killed it in a week. I sent him back a voice message saying I spent 4 years building a life after they kicked me out and they didn't care about that, so why should I care about his YouTube channel? He responded saying it wasn't the same thing. I asked him how it wasn't the same thing. He said his channel was his livelihood. I said my reputation was my livelihood, and he participated in destroying it. He said he was just making content. I said he was just being cruel and calling it content. He stopped responding after that. Wednesday, Mom called from the church parking lot. She'd just come from a meeting with the pastor. Apparently, multiple congregation members had expressed concerns about her involvement in church leadership given the family situation. The pastor suggested she step down from her positions until things settled. Mom was devastated. She said her entire social life revolved around church activities, and now she was being pushed out. She begged me to issue some kind of statement, saying I'd exaggerated or misunderstood things. She said if I didn't do something, she'd lose everything she'd built. I asked her if she remembered when I lost everything 4 years ago. She said that was different. I asked how. She said I brought it on myself by being disrespectful. I asked her how telling the truth was disrespectful. She said some truths don't need to be told. I told Mom that was the core of our entire problem. She thought some truth should be hidden to maintain appearances, while I thought all truth should be told, regardless of how they looked. She said that's not how families work. I said maybe that's why we're not a family anymore. She started crying and said I was killing her. I told her she was being dramatic and hung up. Thursday, Dad showed up at my apartment again. This time, he brought his brother with him. Dad's brother, who I'll call Mark, had been one of the relatives questioning Dad's story. Dad wanted Mark to see me in person and judge whether I was a reasonable person worth believing or a vindictive person attacking his family. Mark asked me to explain my side calmly. I showed him everything. The termination letter, the original footage files with timestamps, the text messages I sent that went ignored, the audio recordings of Mom lying at church, the screenshots of Samantha pretending to be an only child, the documentation of every attempt I made to contact them and every time they lied about me. Mark looked at everything carefully. Then Mark turned to Dad and asked him point blank if he got fired or if he quit. Dad said it was complicated. Mark said it's not complicated, it's a yes or no question. Dad said the circumstances of his departure were his business. Mark said the circumstances became everyone's business when Dad made up a story and kicked his son out for not backing it up. Dad started getting angry. He said Mark was supposed to be on his side. Mark said he was on the side of truth, and right now, truth wasn't looking good for Dad. Dad said Mark was betraying him. Mark said Dad betrayed his own son and then spent 4 years lying about it, so maybe Dad should examine his own betrayals before pointing fingers. They argued in the hallway of my apartment building for 20 minutes. Dad kept insisting I was twisting everything and that he and Mom were good parents who didn't deserve this treatment. Mark kept pointing out that good parents don't kick their kids out for telling the truth. Dad eventually left, but not before telling me this was far from over. Mark stayed. He apologized for not reaching out sooner. He said he'd suspected something was wrong with Dad's story but didn't push because he thought it was none of his business. He said seeing all the evidence made it clear that Dad and Mom had done something unforgivable. He asked what I wanted to happen now. I told Mark I wanted them to publicly acknowledge what they did. I wanted Dad to admit he got fired and kicked me out for not lying about it. I wanted Mom to admit she made up stories about me being a drug addict. I wanted Kirk to admit he mocked me for content. I wanted Samantha to admit she pretended I didn't exist because it was easier than dealing with family drama. Mark asked if I'd be satisfied with that. I said I'd be satisfied when they faced the same level of social destruction they tried to inflict on me. Mark said that was harsh. I said they were harsh first. He said 2 wrongs don't make a right. I said I wasn't trying to make a right. I was trying to make them hurt the way they made me hurt. Mark said he understood but warned me that this path would destroy the entire family, not just Dad and Mom. I told him the family was already destroyed 4 years ago. Everyone was just pretending it wasn't. Friday was the big one.